Here we go. Episode 2. How are we going to start this?
You're not even trying.
We're just starting.
We should talk about feedback.
Yes.
Because we have now figured out what we're going to do, at least for the beginning.
Yeah.
How we're going to do feedback.
For the first little while. So we got a podcast name last episode. That was cool. So then we went and we looked into creating a subreddit, but it looks like that's going to take a little bit more time to work out. So in the meantime, what we have is an email address. So you guys can email us at thegoodpodcast7@gmail.com. So that's the number 7. So that, once again, that's thegoodpodcast7@gmail.com. And that will be in the show notes for you as well. And we'd love to hear from you.
I have a question.
Okay.
Because I actually didn't think about this until just now, so we're going to do this right now.
Okay.
Why 7? Why the number? Like, obviously, you couldn't get just the Good Podcast. That's clear.
Yes.
That's, like, an obvious reason, but why 7 as opposed to, like, 8 or 23?
Yeah, so I did try for the Good Podcast with no numbers, but unfortunately that was already taken, so I didn't have that option. But yeah, so the reason why I went with the number 7 is because that is traditionally the number for perfection, and we are the Good Podcast. If there was a number that meant good, then I would have gone for that one. So feel free to email us at thegoodpodcast7@gmail.com with the number that means good. But and maybe we'll change it. But for now, so the Good Podcast 7, I went with the number 7 because that is the Hebrew number for perfection, I'm pretty sure. But then, if I'm wrong, email us at the Good Podcast 7.
Oh my goodness, calm down. Email us. It's like going to be...
I'm an extrovert. I want to hear from the people, right?
I don't know. It just seems a little disturbing. Seem like a little over the top.
It's
just
not,
figured this out.
It's not disturbing, Jared. It's cute.
Okay. Well, we'll just gloss over that. And that's a decent enough reason. I'm willing to accept perfection.
That was why I went with it.
We are the perfect good podcast.
Yeah.
See, we're not the perfect podcast, but we are the perfect good podcast.
Exactly.
So that's why people listen to us. All 3 of them.
Yeah, wait, but that would be my mom, my dad, and only one of your parents.
They're not that supportive.
Oh man,
they really don't want me doing this. You know what I'm saying?
Oh boy.
Yeah. They were like, well, at least one of us should listen. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Just to know how bad it is. No.
Wow. Man, Jared, are you okay?
I don't like to talk about it. I'm just kidding. It couldn't possibly be bad because it's good.
Exactly.
So, anyway. One day they'll see. So, I do have a next topic since I don't really want to talk about this any longer.
Yep.
It's making me pretty uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to talk about something that you just stirred up in me today to talk about.
Oh, no.
This very day. So I'm just let you think on that for a second. What could possibly...
I'm very scared.
Yeah, I'm sure you are scared. Okay, so the topic we are going to talk about is being on time.
Okay. You're just going to throw me under the bus.
Yes,
like that.
you're going to look like such a hypocrite because I know your moral views about this.
Okay.
And like you, today of all days, you happen to be, what was it, like 8 minutes, maybe a little longer late or something?
I think I was 9 minutes late.
Okay, 9 minutes late. That's not awful, but it's still lateness. So
that's true.
But what I just want to generally kind of talk about this, and in the end, I do believe that you'll come out looking like a decent person because we're gonna go in depth on this, and I think I know a way to redeem
We're
you.
going in deep.
But let's just start off with your opinion on being on time. What does it mean to be on time? Is it important to be on time? Why or why not?
Okay.
What kind of values does being on time hold?
Yeah. So from kind of a logical standpoint, I guess is where I get a lot of my thoughts on it. Is there's this idea of respect and honor. I've actually been I'm taking a medieval humanities course, so I was recently learning about like the Roman system of what's called pietas, or honor and respect, and how that goes from the top down. And so to me, like I think it's, being on time is about respecting the people that you are meeting up with. And so, because especially on something like this, where like if they're going to be waiting on you, like that's just immediately extremely disrespectful to be late, because now you're forcing them to wait on you. The other thing is, I look at, if you have set a time to be somewhere, you have made an agreement to be there at that time. And if you're late, then you are breaking that agreement. You have, at some level, lied, right? And been again, I mean, to me, it really comes back to respect. If there's an event you're going to that starts at a certain time, there's a little more leeway there, right? Because nobody's like, if you're going to a party or something like that, like there's a decent chance they're not going to wait for you to start. You can be, that whole idea of the fashionable 10 minutes late kind of thing. I don't think it's fashionable. I think it's terrible that our culture has decided to make that a fashionable thing. But if you are, I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think it's like uber disrespectful, but I think it is. I think it still is a little bit, because you RSVP'd to this event, right? You have said you were going to be there, and now you are not there when you said you were going to be there.
That's true. I see that. So obviously you don't respect me. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to. No, I'm sorry. No, I don't believe that at all. But like you stated there, see, with the parties and stuff, they won't wait for you, and it's not. You might not even be noticed if you're only a small amount late. Like, yeah, it might be totally, in a sense, acceptable. I don't think it's desirable, like you were saying, that our culture would say that it's fashionable, that it's near almost, in a sense, good. I wouldn't say that at all. I wouldn't say it's good or desirable. Okay, so you were saying that, like, at parties and stuff, it's acceptable to be a little bit late. Like, people won't really notice. You can be 5, even 10 minutes late, and nobody will really notice. The party will go. It will be fine. Like, nobody will really know. And this is like you said, in our culture, sometimes it's looked at as like good, which I would totally disagree with. It's not like good. It's not desirable. It's not something you should try to do. You should try to respect when the party started and be there on time, like you were saying. But if you're not, it's not like the end of the world. I don't see it as like a huge disrespect to everybody there, but it is a little bit. So you shouldn't really desire it over. Desire being late over being on time, even if it's a few minutes. Like, if you think that makes you look good, I think our culture is stupid. So, I don't think that makes you look good, and I think you are just being rude. Like, honestly. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something to talk about. Like, why does our culture think that, why do we have this concept of fashionable 10 minutes late? Right, and I've heard a couple of different reasonings for why it's a good idea to be 10 minutes late. Another ones I've heard is that, like, that way you get there when the party has already started. Right, there's that awkward 5-10 minutes of like everybody's kind of like not really sure what to do. Everybody's just starting to arrive, so everybody's saying hello and all that kind of stuff. Whereas 15, 20, 10, 15, 20 minutes into the party, like, it's going. It's a party. Like,
That's
it's
true.
now a party. It has officially started. We're in the swing of things, and you can walk in, and it's going to be awesome, right? Because the party has started. But I feel like that's a terribly selfish thing to do, right? To get there the 10 minutes late and be like, oh yeah, I don't want to help start this party. I just want to be there to glean all that I can from it.
And part of the reason that happens is probably because people are showing up 5 or 10, 15 minutes late on purpose. So that awkward first period of the party is created by the fact that there are still not a bunch of people there. If everybody were to theoretically show up in the first 5 minutes, the party would start by the 5-minute mark, no doubt, because everyone is there. Things are going to start happening. But if you're like just kind of walked in, the host is still setting some little thing up, doesn't really have time to like be attentive to you, and you're just kind of awkwardly there, which is awful. I mean, I'll credit people. I do not enjoy that part of parties, and I would choose to be 5 minutes late for that reason mainly. Normally no longer. If I were to choose to be late, that would be the latest I would be okay with, without it just being a little too excessive in my opinion,
Yeah.
being a little too rude. But if we were all just actually showed up in the first 5 minutes, there would be less of that, because there would be people there to interact with, and the party would begin, because you wouldn't all just sit around. Once you're there, once everybody's there, you're not just gonna sit around and be awkward and stare blankly at one another. Now there's actually people, and you're going to conversate and start doing things, whatever things, depending on the party. But
yeah.
So I believe it's partially caused by that, like by the fact that we were like saying, yeah, let's be 15 or 20 minutes late. And it's like, I think that comes from people think it looks cool, I guess.
Yes.
People are like, it's like this sense of coolness comes from being uncaring, which is like really bad in my opinion. It's like, if I don't care what happens, then apparently I'm cool. And that's kind of how it equates directly, or like, I don't care about being at this party because I'm too good for this party or too good for these people. And that's cool, apparently, which is awful in my opinion. Nobody should desire to be cool if that is what cool is.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. And I mean, the answer is, that's not cool. That's just selfish. So if you are that kind of person, stop it. Don't do that. Don't be the cool guy. Be the nice guy.
Well, we don't have to lecture our listeners. We could just talk about it and make them feel bad. We don't have to directly call them out. I mean, we could.
We can, but but now you're just talking about being passive-aggressive. We could talk about that, too.
We could go either way with this.
We can talk about passive-aggressive people in episode 334.
Okay. Well, anyway. So, I think let's kind of summarize what we've been saying a little bit. Being on time is, we both, it sounds like, believe to be, we believe it to be important. It is respectful. It shows that you care about whoever you're being on time with, or whatever the event is, or whatever it is. If you're on time, that shows that you are caring about that thing, and that is ideal. That you would care about the things that you're involved in, that you would not just do this weird cool thing that our culture accepts, that I would actually suggest is really terrible, and I think you would agree with that. This cool mentality of not caring about things in our culture is kind of disgusting, honestly. But so anyway, I think that's mainly what we've hit. But I'd also like to kind of point out, I think in certain circumstances, if you show up late, it's not automatically disrespectful.
Okay.
It depends. I think it really depends on what the thing is, who the person is, what kind of things have been said beforehand. So just to make my example on this point, it would be you coming today. You were coming today. It was kind of a plan of like being here at 2 o'clock, which is fine. We record here at 2 o'clock together, and that was kind of the plan, but it felt a little loose, and it wasn't like super, like I feel like we were mostly both planning on it being at 2, but it wasn't like I was exactly ready right away either, and you were kind of falling a little bit behind, and I don't feel either of us were being like really strict on the time period. I think it felt kind of loose, and there was no thought in my mind that would have told me that you disrespected me because you didn't show up on time. And so in a scenario like that, I don't think it was that big a deal. I don't really know if it was, I wouldn't say it's good, I guess, but I wouldn't really say it's bad either. Almost.
I think that in this kind of scenario, that's where there's a level of like, you and I have a relationship, and like a part of our relationship is that we aren't super specific on times, right? Like when you and I go and hang out, we set a time so that we have something to put in our calendars and stuff, but we're, if I really needed you to be on time for something, I would specify that, because I feel like we have this understood thing in our relationship where it's like, it's not disrespectful if you're 5 minutes late, like that's totally fine. Right, we kind of have this understanding between the two of us that being 5 minutes late is totally fine, and I think it's because of that understanding that makes it okay. So I don't think that there's, like, in every scenario, if you're 5 minutes late, it's always terrible, right? Like, I don't want it to sound like that, but I think that the reason why you and I can do that is because that's how our relationships works, and we both do it to each other every once in a while, and like it doesn't. like you said, you didn't feel disrespected, and I wouldn't feel disrespected if you were 5 minutes late with me, because that's just how our relationship works. But there are certainly, unless you have that kind of relationship, then that's where I would say it is bad and disrespectful to be that 5-10 minutes late.
Right. And I think what we're getting at here a little bit is, I guess, in our relationship, there's kind of a sub-agreement to, like, when we decide times, we're kind of free flow about it.
Yes.
And if we are, 5 or 10 minutes late here or there, it's not that big a deal. Like, we have almost agreed upon that ahead of time without ever really stating it, in a sense, because that's just kind of the people we are. Yeah. We are okay with events that don't have, real time crunch situations, to be a few minutes late here or there, and it's not a big deal. Like, we both have agreed on this, so that makes it okay. Now, I think I work that way most of the time, and I think you're kind of back and forth. I couldn't really place what one would be your preference.
I don't really know which one. I don't know that I know the answer.
You don't even know yourself.
I don't know which one would be my preference. It does kind of go back and forth. I think that for me, at some level, depends on the event. If it's a casual thing, then I'm a lot more casual about the timing. Like, I feel like that bleeds in. But if it's like a formal event, so anything, like if I'm having, any kind of like vaguely business style meeting with somebody, like, I want them to be on time. Like, this is a time where, we're being intentional and professional, then I think that being on time is a part of that. Whereas if it's like, oh yeah, let's just go hang out and get a cup of coffee or whatever, like that's a totally casual thing, and so on that kind of thing, I'm like, no, I don't feel that bad if they're 5 minutes late, or if I'm 5 minutes late. And even in my own head, like as I'm deciding, okay, what time do I need to leave my house in order to be here, I think about the nature of the event. I will think about, like, can I be 5 minutes late or can I not? Because that'll make a difference. Like, sometime, like with this thing, like I was in the middle of something and I was like, you know what, Jared will live. He's not going to care. I can finish this and be 5 minutes late.
Right.
Whereas if this was a business meeting, or I needed to go into work or something, right? I can't be 5 minutes late, so I would have to just like, you know what? I just need to leave right now. I need to stop whatever I'm doing and drop it all and go.
That's true. There are certain like different times when I say I do. I guess my natural preference, I would just be like, yes, I want things to be free flow. I don't really care if people are 5 minutes late with me. I would prefer if they didn't care if I was 5 minutes late with them. Like, I would prefer it to be that way. Yeah. But when it comes to like class or a business or something that there's just certain things, I guess, in life, like, businessy things or just more important things where you just really have to be on time. There's just not really a choice there. Yes, obviously I'm going to be an on-time person for those things, or at least try to. Obviously I make mistakes, because when I know I lean towards this side, it bleeds into, even when I know I have a professional thing to do, it could still, make me be late anyway because of my normal way of being. So sometimes that can bleed over, and that is not preferable, but it does happen. And even this morning, I had class this morning, but today was actually a good day. I did get there on time, thankfully. But I was working on something, and I was like, how many more of these things can I do? When do I really have to leave? I'm like, I can't really be 5 minutes late. That factored in. I was like, well, I really need to kind of be done now if I want to not be 5 minutes late. So, that just kind of factors in. When it's professional, it does kind of change. I try to be, the on-time person, but it's against my natural, I feel like, still. I still feel like I'm that person who would just give 5 minutes here and there, even in a business setting. If I could have that say, that's how I would run a business. Honestly, because 5 minutes is just, yes, it's an amount of time, and yes, it can be annoying, but to me, it's just such a small amount of time. I know it can add up and everything, and I'm sure if we get feedback on this, there will be plenty of people who are just those kind of people where they would hate me. They just absolutely, they're like, no, you have to be on time to everything. They're just people who work like that, in my opinion. They're just like, you decide a time and you be there at that time. That's just what you do. And I think some people are wired that way, and some people are like, they give 5 minutes here or there, and they don't care as much. I think there's two different wirings when it comes to this, and I acknowledge that I am the give 5 minutes here and there. But I also know when I'm interacting with people who are wired the other way, to properly respect them, I would have to honor their way of thinking and be there on time if I wanted to respect them properly. Otherwise, they're going to see it as disrespect, and so then it is disrespect, in my opinion, because they feel that I should have respected their time better, and that's fine. That's fair. For me, I just 5 minutes here or there just doesn't mean that much to me, but, some people it does, so I have to respect that if that is their belief.
Yeah, that's true. I guess my natural bent is to be on time, or actually often I go for the opposite, depending on the event and whether or not this is doable. I actually will tend to be the 10 minutes early kind of person, 10 to 15 minutes early. At certain events, because I like being able to be helpful in setting up the party, right? There's, we talked earlier about that initial 10 minutes of awkwardness. I feel like I've developed a bit of a skill set of getting conversations started, and so I like being useful to the host or hostess. And I'm like, you know what, I can come 10 minutes early, and then the first, for a while there's 3 or 4 people there, I can run a conversation, right? I can get this party started and help you out in that way, or I can help you finish with the last minute arrangement things. Like, it's in my nature to be helpful, and so I like being there 15 minutes early so that I can be helpful to the host or hostess. But then, like you said, that this idea of, like, I want to respect the wishes of the other person, I know that there are some places where I would actually not be helpful in getting there early. I'm going to stress them, because if they've registered me as a guest, then if I'm there early, I'm now being rude, because now they have a guest that they have to take care of and think about and care for and all that kind of stuff. And now they're doing their last minute preparations and trying to take care of me and make sure they're being a good host to me, and now I've caused problems by being there early. And I've done that a couple of times, and I felt really bad. And I realized, like, okay, there are definitely some people where, like, you need to show up, like, their preference is that you show up exactly on time, not late and not early, right? But then there are other places where, like, they just know me and they know that that's who I am, and so when I show up early, like, oh, great, oh, thank goodness, Josh is here, right? I can finish my last minute preparation stuff, and I don't have to worry about what the first few people to arrive are going to expect. They're going to see Josh, and Josh will be there to take care of them.
Yeah. Well, and I think just one more thing to mention here about getting there early, or even planning to just leave earlier than it would take you to get there is a good idea, generally speaking, if you really do want to be on time. Because worst come to worst case scenario, you could just sit in the car for 5 minutes if you end up being 5 minutes early. And they're the kind of people who want you to walk in the door at the moment that it starts, not early, not late. If that's the kind of people, you don't want to risk. Things can happen, traffic-wise, and even just getting out the door-wise. You might forget this one little thing, have to run back inside, and that does cost time, even though it's a negligible 1 minute. That 1 minute that you lost is now 1 minute late. It's not that much at all, but it is a little bit. So,
yeah, and I've done that before. There have been times where, like, I showed up 5 minutes or 10 minutes early, and, because I do definitely try and make sure that I'm there and I have enough time, because that kind of stuff does definitely happen to me, of the whole, like, oh, I gotta go back in and grab something, or, oh, man, I gotta get gas. And so I often try and plan in, I call it, like, flex time into my schedule, for when I leave and stuff. And so, but then there are events where, like, I know I shouldn't show up early, and I've totally done that and sat in my car for 10 minutes, or I think I had put in way too much flex time, and I sat in my car for around 30 minutes because I knew that I shouldn't be there that early, but I really had nothing else to do, and I was like, I am just stuck. So I turned on the air conditioning in my car, grabbed out my phone, and just sat in the parking lot on the free Wi-Fi of, the event venue, and was just watching some Netflix for 30 minutes.
Oh, see, sounds awful to me because I'm like, I could have been comfortably on my bed for 25 minutes watching Netflix rather than sitting in my car here. Or I could have got that last bit of work that I was hoping to get done, or all kinds of reasons why I feel like that's just terrible. Like,
yeah, and that's where like I am so happy that that we live in a society with smartphones and mobile Netflix. By the way, Netflix, feel free to sponsor us.
Oh yes,
just
definitely.
Email us at thegoodpodcast7@gmail.com with any of your sponsorship requests. We would be happy to.
We'd be very interested. Very, extremely interested.
Yeah. YouTube, you can sponsor us too. We use plenty. That's my thing. If I have 5 minutes, I pull up YouTube and throw on a YouTube video in my car. My car's audio system isn't that bad, and so it is kind of almost enjoyable. There's like a quietness dome in your car, and then you plug it into the sound system in your car, and you can like turn it up really loud, and you've got like almost that surround sound feel because you've got speakers in the back of the car and speakers in the front. Like, watching stuff in your car actually isn't that terrible. Like, it's almost a good experience.
Right. Maybe we could talk about this more at another time. But
yeah.
But I do want to mention real quickly while you talk about car stereo systems, my system is really funny because it has like a deep bass, what do they call those?
A subwoofer?
Subwoofer.
Okay.
It has one.
Oh.
Which is really...
That is nice.
It would be nice, but the problem is my car is kind of old. Okay. So when it goes, when it's hitting, it's like really just rattling everything like crazy. And there's must be something loose that just hits somewhere and it sounds weird. Like, you can just hear a little bit of like... But obviously the music is pretty loud and like it's not like overbearing and like ruining the song completely or anything crazy, but it's still there. You're just like, oh, this is just like rattling because of my subwoofer is just so much vibrating everything.
Yeah, you've got that deep rattling noise. That is very sad. I don't think my car has a subwoofer at all, so you're still ahead of me there. But yeah, that would get really annoying.
Yeah.
But Jared, I do want to apologize to you. I am glad that you didn't feel disrespected, but I do want to make sure that I do respect you and I want to honor your time, and I apologize for being late. And so I definitely want to make sure I'm sorry, and I will definitely make efforts to be on time next time, because I know this podcast is important. It's really good.
It's really good. Okay. All right. Well, thanks. I accept your apology.
Thank you, Jared. So we do want to talk about apologies, because that is something that I've noticed in our society seems to have shifted a little bit, and I feel like apologies don't mean as much as they should, and maybe did in the past, but definitely they do not now mean as much as they should. I think we live in a culture of, oh, I'm sorry, and then that's it, right? But that's not a real apology. That doesn't mean anything. Right? We throw this phrase around of I'm sorry all the time without really using it in a way that's meaningful and that actually communicates what it's supposed to. I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you here. It does not mean what it should. And there may have been a time in the past where it did mean it or not. I don't really remember. But either way, now it doesn't mean what it should, for sure. I think like the words really don't matter when it comes down to it, in my opinion. If I say I'm sorry about this thing or whatever, or if I say some long, like you had just given me a pretty long apology, that was better word usage in my opinion, and it really I don't think that really mattered that much though. What the words themselves were, I think it matters more if you really mean, are you actually sorry about this? Do you actually want to make sure you respect me from here forward? And I did feel that, so I would say that you had a genuine apology, but if you had just said, well, I'm sorry about that, and I could still feel that it was genuine if you were being genuine, but it depends. It really depends. Tone can almost be more important than the words that were actually used.
Yes.
And that can say a lot more in my opinion. So the words almost don't matter to me. It matters what do you actually think yourself when you're apologizing. Do you really mean the fact that you're sorry? Are you really sorry? Like, are you genuinely sorry on top of the fact that you're saying that you are? Or are you just saying it as a cop-out? Which is what I believe most of our culture is doing nowadays. That we just say, I'm sorry, but we don't mean it at all. We're just kind of copping out of having to deal with the repercussions of not being sorry about it. Because even though we're not being sorry about it, we're kind of pretending like we are, so that you can't directly approach me on that and be like, wow, you're just kind of a terrible person for not feeling bad about that. Like,
well, I said I was sorry.
Right, exactly. So it's your cop-out. You're like,
excuse,
I was sorry. See, I said it. But were you really sorry?
Yeah. No, I think that's really good. I think you said it right there. Like, we use "I'm sorry" as a cop out, but we don't mean it. I would say that I think the words do matter. So I would disagree with you there, because I think that, now, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, something like being 5 minutes late doesn't really require, a long drawn out apology, right? Like, I think you're right. Like, if it's a small, any kind of small little, social mishap kind of thing is probably how I'd categorize, a lot of the times when we use the phrase "I'm sorry." I don't have a problem with it there, right? Like, I don't think it's necessary to, like, spell out everything that you did wrong and how you're going to fix it or whatever. But I think there are definitely times where, like, an apology needs to have some meat to it. I think that there are times when we've truly done something wrong. I think it's important to recognize and verbalize what it is we did wrong. Because it's the best way to communicate it, right? Like what you were saying, and the whole idea of, like, do I know whether or not you're sorry or not? It can come down to tone, and maybe you don't have to use words for it, but I think it is definitely much better to just go ahead and spell it out, right? So that you don't have to guess whether or not, like, like, you can throw around the phrase "I'm sorry," but what are you actually sorry for? What do you actually think you did wrong?
Right. See, okay, so...
And that's where the clarification comes in.
I think the thing was that you said a little bit, like, you really elaborated. And that was... I was more differentiating between that and just saying, I am sorry about this thing. I do think it is important to mention what you are sorry about. Just saying I'm sorry does feel very cheap and probably inadequate. But even just... I'm sorry about, and then this thing, and that being, like, almost one sentence, and just not really. And if you feel you need to elaborate, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it will ever be bad if you are genuinely apologizing to someone and you just use more words to express it. I don't think that's going to end up bad, as long as your apology is genuine. But I think you could also go to the other end of the spectrum, where you are just showering them with words of apology and not having any kind of remorse in your heart at all, and just not really being sorry at all. You're just kind of saying how sorry you are, apparently, even though you're not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Exactly. But see, I actually want to bring up, in the past, I was one of the worst people. I fell into this. I was the person who would cop out with the sorry. I was that person. For quite a while, I would just kind of say, I'm sorry, and then never do anything about it. I didn't actually care. For a time, I had even tricked myself into thinking I was actually sorry, but it was so messed up that I was, like, didn't really care, but, like, thought I cared. So I said sorry, but I didn't really care, because there was nothing behind it when it came down to it, because I did the same things again. That's what I'd say. I didn't really care. I wasn't really that sorry about it, because I did them again. So if I did them again, that must have been an ungenuine apology. There's no way, in my opinion, that you could have a genuine apology without any shift in the thing that you're doing. Not to say that you will never do that thing again, but you will surely do it either to a less severe degree, or less often, or something. There has to be something, in my opinion, if in your mind you were actually sorry about such a thing.
I agree. I think that there's this principle that, like, true sorrow will necessitate repentance, which is a changing of direction, right? Or a changing of what you were doing so as to not repeat the offense, right? I think you're right. Like, I mean, in this instance, right, it would be, the change that I would go about doing is recategorizing in my head, right? These podcast things are important, and I want to respect Jared's time, and we only have so much time to record this episode, so I need to make sure I'm on time, right? I need to reprioritize that in a higher level in my brain, right? Because clearly it was on too low in the priority list, and that's why I was late. And so I want to fix that. Right. Again, like you're saying, like I don't need to verbalize all of this, but I think for the purpose of the podcast, it's helpful to talk about, like, if I'm truly apologizing, there will be something that changed. It may be really minor, and I may end up making a mistake again, right? But you're right, that if you are truly apologizing, something will be different, and something will have changed. Otherwise, you're just sorry, not sorry, right? Or your sorrow has led to nothing, and that's just a waste.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, in this specific instance, I actually think that, at this point, it's really not a big deal for you specifically being, 8 or so minutes late for us to do this. Because at this point, what we're doing right now is a hobby. We're not making money off of this.
It's true.
We're not. There are no advertisements as of right now. So it's just a hobby. It's just.
That's true.
It's not actually in any way something businessy or anything like that. But if it were to become something where we were getting advertisers and generating some money, then it would be much more important for you to be on time, because it would be more work-like in the sense that, we have this project, we need to get it done, we have a deadline. But if we ended up missing a deadline right now, it would be a little annoying for the people who actually want to listen to this, but it's not like, I don't know, it doesn't cost us really that, something tangible to our life. Like, yes, it costs us, I guess, listeners, care, like, frustration levels. I don't know. But it's not really that detrimental of an impact to us directly.
Yeah. No, I agree. So, I think we want to transition to, so I think the flip side of this, right? So we've talked about what makes a good apology is true and genuine sorrow leading to true and genuine change. And then I think the flip side of this is accepting apologies, which is another thing you and I have both noticed is a skill that seems to be lacking in our culture, and I don't really understand why or how we got rid of this. But this idea, because I think there are times when we will apologize, and then there's this response, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, oh, don't worry about it, right? And I think we have made this too much of a habit. Certainly, there are times where, it isn't that big a deal, right? So something, where, like if you're walking through a crowd and you bump into someone and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, and they're like, oh, don't worry about it. That is a perfectly acceptable exchange, right? That is a great use of, it's not a big deal, don't worry about it.
Right. It was just an accident. I don't think there has to be a lot of sorrow behind that.
Yeah.
I don't think you intended to ever run into them, so there's not a bunch of change you have to make. Maybe just look where you're going a little better, but really sometimes you just can't control such a thing.
Yeah, right. When walking in a crowd, you're going to end up bumping into somebody, and it is still the right thing to do to say, I'm sorry, and it's also perfectly acceptable for them to say, oh, don't worry about it, right? Like, that's totally fine. I have no issue with either party in that scenario. But a different scenario where I think we've been overusing the, oh, don't worry about it, or, oh, it's not a big deal, is something where, like, if I've said something offensive, like, and I realize, like, I can see your face, like, oh, man, that joke went too far, right? I have offended you. And I'm like, I am so sorry for saying that. That was disrespectful and hurtful. I do apologize. And they're like, oh, don't worry about it. It's no big deal, right? We have this idea that, like, oh, I don't want to, and I don't know if it's, I don't want to look weak and admit that you have hurt me, or maybe it's back to this idea of, like, that I'm sorry is a cop-out, and I want to, like, I want to easily accept your apology so that later you'll easily accept mine, right? Maybe we have this, like, unspoken agreement between all of us where, like, if we always say it's no big deal, then next time when I do something, you'll say it was no big deal to me, and I'm just paying it forward, right? But realistically, we're lying. right? If I'm bothering to apologize to you about something I said, I know I hurt you, right? I'm not going to do that unless I know I hurt you and I can see it in your face, and like that's why I'm apologizing to you. Just own it. Like, it's okay. You don't look weak because I was able to offend you, right? You don't need to propagate this cop-out culture and pay it forward or whatever. Like, I think those are both terrible reasons to be like, oh, it's no big deal. Like, no, it is a little bit of a deal. And you should just say, oh, I accept your apology. Yes, that did kind of hurt me. I forgive you, right? Like, that's how that should go.
Yeah, and I think it's really dumb because we, like, when you say it's weak, I think that is a thing that we think sometimes. Like, if we're not able to just accept the apology and get on with it quickly, even if they genuinely apologize and we want to, like, actually accept that apology and kind of move on, because obviously we're not going to hold something against somebody forever. That's just, that would just be a sad life, honestly. You would have no friends, so you would be offended with everyone that you ever meet, and you would just know nobody. So, I think the thing is, though, when we're talking about, like, I need to look strong, I think that's kind of ridiculous, because naturally our brains do care about what other humans think. It's just gonna happen. Like, that's not a weakness, that's just being a human being. Like, you care what that guy thinks about you, even if it's a little bit. Like, you care. Everybody's just gonna care at least a little bit. Like, I think it's good to minimize that down, especially for people you don't know in huge crowds, because you have to be careful. If you just really accepted everything and it was the most important opinion to you, it would be awful. Like, you would just get so many people would tear you down, and you would become super depressed, and it would just be awful. So you do have to, like, you're gonna care a little bit, though. You can't help it. Like, you're just going to care a little bit. It doesn't matter how good you are about, quote-unquote, not caring what other people think. You are going to care a little bit. And that is just, I think that's just part of our anatomy, and that's fine. Like, you don't need to think that's some ultimate weakness. It's just a part of being a person. So when it comes to somebody saying they're sorry to you, I think it's totally fine if you need time to process, especially if it's something really bad. Like, if you're just like, well, I can't really forgive you yet, that's okay. You need to be more honest and be like, that's the case, than just being like, oh, it's fine, and then pretending that you're just going to be buddies with this guy right now, even though it's just going to make it even harder to forgive them, because you just need a moment away. Like, you need a break from them to really think about what happened. You can't just keep hanging out with them after that moment necessarily all the time. It depends on how bad. Obviously, in certain scenarios, you can just forgive somebody quickly and easily on certain things. But if it's something really bad and you need time to, process through it, then just own up to that. It's not like, I don't know, we should not be thinking that's a weakness. That's just a part of who we are. Sometimes things just hit us hard.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're emotional creatures, and like you said, we care about what other humans think of us, and that is not at all a weakness. That's in part one of our strengths. That's how we're motivated to do things. Like, admitting that part of human nature is not admitting a weakness. It's one of our strengths. It's part of what makes us. It's part of what gives us the ability to subdue and dominate the earth, is the ability to work together, and that necessitates caring about what other people think. Right? This is an important part of being human, is to at some level, at an appropriate level, care about what other people think. Not too much, right? But to at least take it into account. And so, and to be emotionally available, and that includes vulnerability, right? I mean, sometimes people will hurt us, and that's okay. And we want to be able to admit that, and accept their apology. And I think you hit on something else. Like, we need to take time. Either both the apologizer and the apologizee, right? Like, if, you don't want to just say I forgive you if you don't mean it. Don't lie to them, right? Either side, right? And don't say I'm sorry if you don't mean it, right? It's a terrible thing to just start lying about it. I think that was probably what started setting us down this road of, like, I'm saying I'm sorry because I'm supposed to be, even though I'm not, right? Or I'm saying I forgive you because I'm supposed to, even though I don't, right? And that's wrong. That's just straight up lying, and that is very, very hurtful. That's harming to humanity as a whole if we all just start lying to each other because it's what you're supposed to do. Well, it's what you're supposed to do because you're supposed to actually feel these things. You're supposed to actually feel sorry. You're supposed to actually feel forgiveness for them. If you aren't feeling those things, take some time and figure out how to feel those things, and then say it. Don't just say it out of obligation, because you're obligated to feel it. You're not obligated to say it.
Right. I think when it comes down to it, a lot of this topic could be summed up, in my opinion, by just saying, be genuine.
Yes.
Be a genuine person when it comes to apologizing, receiving apologies, just all the way around. When you have emotions or don't have emotions, be genuine about what you're feeling. If you're not sorrowful, don't apologize. Yeah. I mean, it's just better off that way, honestly, because that person will know how much of a jerk you are and won't be your friend anymore. And it's probably better off for both of you that way. Now, that's really harsh and really exaggerated, but honestly, just being a genuine person, I think, will fix a lot of these things, because people will bring them up to you. Be like, you should have been sorry about this. Like, what's wrong with you? And if you are really just such a bad person that you don't care, I don't know what to say to you.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think you're right. That is definitely the way to sum it up. And speaking of being genuine, let's talk about the time when I totally pranked someone and was not genuine. So we have an update on the Valentine's sonnet adventure.
Okay.
So we are recording this in late February, so Valentine's Day has come and gone. And for those of you who maybe are coming in just at episode 2 and haven't listened to the previous episode, what happened is I have a friend at a college, going to a college a few hours away, and he is single, and so for Valentine's Day, I decided to pull a prank on him. And the college had this thing where apparently for $2 you can hire someone dressed up in a Shakespeare costume to deliver to them a Valentine's Day sonnet. So we pursued that option, but that ended up not working out at all. They didn't respond to our emails, which is very sad. So we did our own thing, and it turned out even better.
Well, that's good.
It was fantastic. But before we get into the story, we have to talk about, we decided that this operation needed a name. Because this turned into an entire network of spies working to pull off this prank, and we decided we needed an operational name.
Okay, and by spies you mean random college students,
yes.
Just to clarify for them. Because
yes.
He doesn't actually know any spies. 0.
Or do I?
No, he doesn't. So anyway.
Yes, so I worked with my network of friends at this college to prank our mutual friend, and we titled this Operation Cupid's Arrow. And so Operation Cupid's Arrow has worked out amazingly.
Wait. I want to go back.
Yeah.
There was just this moment where you stated, you were like, Cupid's Arrow. And then you just looked at me, and you were like expecting me to be like, whoa, that's good, or like laugh or something. And I was just like,
he gave me
no.
nothing.
I was just like, no. It's just, well, what would you do? Like, put this in the email. I want to hear this feedback. Just tell him how bad it is. That's what you should tell him.
No.
Just be like, Cupid's Arrow is just so generic and cliche and not original.
No.
And it just, I was expecting it from a mile away. Just something so bland when it comes to Valentine's Day.
Here's why it's not bland, and that's because this is a play on Operation Broken Arrow, which was a mission gone about by the U.S. government. I believe it was during the Cold War, and it was like the name of our efforts to disable the nuclear capabilities of some of the Cold War nations. And I was like, I was thinking of Operation Broken Arrow, and then I was like, but it's Valentine's Day, so we're gonna call it Operation Cupid's Arrow.
Okay, fine. That makes it a little better. I mean, didn't know that, and I'm ignorant to a lot of history and stuff, so that's fine. For the history nerds out there, I'm sure you appreciated it. So if you are a history nerd and you understood all of that before he had to explain it, you should definitely send in an email, because he'll be really happy to know that you knew that was what he was referencing.
Yeah.
So if you want to make Josh's day.
Yeah. Just address your email to the cute one, and I'll get it, and I will be very happy. And so Operations Cupid Arrow was fantastic. Again, we did go with 4 sonnets, so we selected 4 sonnets from Shakespeare's writings, and we delivered them to him throughout the day, and oh my goodness, was it great. So the first one was left on his desk in his first class in the morning. And so, when I was like, right, the person who the main person helping me out on campus printed out the sonnets, and then went to all the trouble of artificially aging the paper that they were printed on, and then rolled them up and like tied it in ribbon, so it's this like old school, like ancient scroll that he's like unfurling, and it's this love sonnet from Shakespeare, signed from either random people that he knows that would never send him anything, or professors from the college who would also never send him a sonnet. And so, this was our way of signing. We didn't want to sign them anonymous, so we just started using random names from people who would never have sent him a sonnet, and it was fantastic. So the first one was sitting on his desk in class, waiting for him as he arrived. So the second one, we were able to work with the professor of his second class. So as the professor was walking around handing back homework or assignments, he also went, "Person, this is for you. Somebody left this for you." And so he got it handed to him by the professor, signed from a completely different professor, so as to maintain all the anonymity. And then for the third one, we got his dorm roommate to help us out there, and that was left on his pillow of his bed while he was at class. So he came back from class to see it just sitting on his bed, magically appeared there. And then the fourth one, we were actually able to get that one. So there is apparently an honors room where they all hang out and do homework and talk and whatnot. And so we boxed up the fourth scroll and left it outside the door with a rose in the same box. Again, signed from a fourth random person who he knows, who would again never send him a sonnet. So it was fantastic. He still has no idea who did it. He has been accusing nearly everyone on campus, I am hearing. And so everyone has reasonable, plausible deniability because we used an entire network of people to spread them around the campus. He has no idea, and nobody knows the full plan except for me and my spy master on the ground. And it's great. He has no idea, and so I'm looking forward to this weekend, actually. In just a couple of days, I'll be headed out to the college to hang out with him and a couple of our friends over there. So I'm really looking forward to sitting down to dinner and having him go, "Guys, you won't believe what happened to me on Valentine's Day." And I'll just go, "Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds crazy. Can't believe that happened."
Well, I have to hear about his response.
Yeah.
Because that sounds really, like, from your perspective, that would be really hilarious if it went down exactly like that.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that. It just sounds too good. Like, that will not be exactly how it happens. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
You can tell us about that conversation later. But I'm looking here at these old, aged... They just look great.
I know.
They look perfect. Because I'll try to get these in the show notes. And they just look... They're old, like... Looks like artificially aged. They just have it tied up all nice in a little scroll. They are perfect. Like, this is the best thing you could be leaving around for him to get. Like, it is just hilarious because it's like, I don't even know. That is amazing. Just people he doesn't signed. I love that part. That it's signed by people who would never send him one, but it's not just anonymous. It's like signed by somebody that would not send him one.
Yep.
So obviously he knows that's not the case.
Yeah.
But that's just hilarious still.
Yeah.
And I love that you got the teacher to hand it to him. That is, this is just all. That's like the best prank ever.
It was great. It was great. It was, as we were talking with various people around the campus, we were like, "Hey, do you want to help us out with this prank?" And they were like, "Wait, who are you pranking?" "Oh yeah, I'm definitely in. Whatever I can do, I will totally help you prank this guy. He definitely deserves it." So we had one of the professors who helped us out was the head of the entire honors program at the college. He was like, "Oh yeah, definitely, I'll help you prank him. You tell me what I can do, and I will help you out." Right? Like it was fantastic. We had basically half of, it felt like we had half of the campus just like all in on it. We had a few people trying to get pictures of his reactions. I don't think we ended up with any, which did make me very sad. That was the only part that kind of failed, but I kind of knew it would be really hard to pull off, like, while maintaining secrecy. So we don't have any pictures of, like, his exact facial reaction, but we have secondhand stories from people who were there watching it happen, and it sounds amazing. It went perfectly. Again, he still has no idea. He knows like one or two of the people who were involved, and he knows they're involved in some capacity, but he's also like, there's no way you did this alone. Who else were you working with? He has no idea. It was just great. I'm so happy that this worked out so well.
Well, yeah, like, obviously his roommate, he must know that
right.
he was involved. That's pretty obvious.
So he's pretty sure, but then still, like, because of the way his brain works, he, can, like me, can start having his brain go a little wild, and because everyone keeps denying it, he's spinning up all kinds of conspiracy theories from what I'm hearing, and so, like, he obviously strongly suspects his roommate, but his roommate has successfully been able to dodge saying yes, and so he's thinking, like, into my dorm. Like, I think I heard he checked the door for lock-picking marks, right? Like, I mean, it's great. He really has no idea. His brain is going haywire trying to figure it all out, and he still has no idea. It's fantastic. I'm really hoping I can keep a straight face. Honestly, that's my biggest concern about this whole thing, is that when I go up there and he tells me the story, I'm just gonna, like, crack up laughing and he'll assume it was me. But I'm hoping I will be able to keep a straight face. I'm gonna have to practice my poker face.
Yeah, you will, because I'm skeptical. You do not have a very good poker face.
Yeah, you know me, Jared. I have a terrible poker face.
So I am skeptical, but if you pull it off, I'll definitely want to hear about this conversation either way. You know what happens, so that will be to come. But you've told me that you have had, apparently, the most delicious meal, one of the most delicious meals ever, but specifically it was about the potatoes and the noodles. Yeah.
So I recently went out to dinner with a friend, and I was not late to this one, by the way.
That's impressive. I'm glad.
Yeah, I was not late for that one.
And
so the listeners wouldn't know this, Jared, but you know this about me. I love Italian food, and I also love anything made from potatoes. Right? These are like my two favorite things. So my friend was like, we were looking for somewhere to eat, and I was like, I've had a whole lot of like Hispanic food, Asian food, and Italian food. So let's go anywhere but one of those places. And he was like, well, my coworker recommended this German restaurant. Let's go there. And I was like, okay, great. I haven't had German food in forever. I don't know that I really have much experience with it in the first place. And so I was like, great. We'll go to an authentic German restaurant, which, again, not sponsored, but I totally recommend if you guys are ever in Sanford, Florida, the Willow Tree Cafe. It's a fantastic place. The mashed potatoes and noodles are great. So if you had told me I was going to have the best mashed potatoes of my life and the best noodles of my life in the same night, I would have laughed at you. If you had then told me that it would be in the same night and at a German restaurant, I would have laughed at you even more. And he would have said the same thing. So it was great. We ended up ordering slightly different meals, but we both got largely the same sides. So we both got the mashed potatoes, which the restaurant calls Heaven and Earth.
That's so appropriate.
Mashed potatoes.
Because apparently they were heavenly, if I'm understanding this correctly.
They were definitely heavenly. So let me just read their description. So it says, our special recipe of mashed potatoes with sautéed onions, bacon, and apples. So when I read this, right, you know me, I am a very curious person. I like trying new things. So I was like, okay, mashed potatoes with apples in them. That sounds like it's going to be terrible. But I have to try it because it's mashed potatoes, and I love potatoes.
It's very interesting, and almost like borderlines in my opinion. If you what if you put the potatoes and the apples and you kind of like mash them up together, and it became like one thing? That'd almost be like applesauce and mashed potatoes together.
Yeah, and honestly, that was almost what it was. It was a little bit like that.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so it sounds like, to me, I was like, oh, this is gonna be terrible. Like, you can't, like, because apples are sweet. You can't make sweet mashed potatoes, but. So we got that, and me and my friend both, like, we grab our spoons, we go straight for the mashed potatoes. We both, like, it was perfectly timed, right? We both pick up a spoonful of mashed potatoes. We put it in our mouths at the same time. We're looking at each other, and I kid you not, both of us had the exact same expression of, I cannot believe what is happening. My jaw almost dropped, except that would have meant, spitting out all the food, and I was not going to spit this out. I was like, this is the greatest mashed potatoes I have ever had. I was like, this is amazing. I have never experienced anything that was like just this delicious all at once. It was such a stark contrast, because I was going into it thinking like, these are going to be terrible, and then I try them, and they are almost exactly what I was expecting. It's a sweet mashed potatoes, and I was like, this is terrible. But I had it, and I was like, this is amazing.
That sounds so hilarious. It sounds like a movie for real. Like, you
guys
were just
felt like
you were just like, oh, these mashed potatoes. You both scoop it out at the same time, stick it in your mouth at the same time. It like zooms in on your face, and you express your like deep love of these potatoes, and then it zooms in on his face. Yes. It's just like, whoa, it's like the same expression, and you're both just it just goes back and forth one more time, and then you just both are like, those are amazing. You just say it at the same time or something like that.
Yes, that was almost exactly what happened, right? It felt like I could almost feel the camera panning back and forth between our two faces as we have this like transition from like from shock to joy to happiness, back to joy, back to shock, back to surprise, like everything all at once. We're both just like speechless almost, and then like we both regain, like we finish it, we swallow, we just look at each other like, I can't, like, and then like the first words out of our mouth are like, I can't believe this, like, and so like we go for another bite, we're like, it can't, and we're just,
it must have been a fluke. We must try again.
Yeah, we try again, and it really is this good. It really is this good, right? And then we're like, okay, noodles, right? I got the noodles with brown gravy, and he got the noodles with cheese, but it's the same egg noodles.
Well, at this point, hold on, I just want to at this point, you just like, so you went for the potatoes first. You're just like, these are amazing.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, okay, there's nothing that could possibly match this. That's like, that's what you must think immediately, because I'd be like, well, if this is so good the rest of my meal, there's just no chances that it's going to be on the same level of shock and amazingness. It just can't happen.
Yeah, I was like, this place isn't, it's not like a 5-star, or a 3 Michelin star restaurant or something, right? So like, clearly, and the mashed potatoes are one of their like house special, it's their own special recipe, right?
So you're like expecting.
I was like, okay, cool. So this is the one good thing here, right? Exactly. Is the mashed potatoes. And so I'm looking at the noodles, and let me just describe these. They look like almost like scrambled eggs.
We actually have like a picture here. Hopefully we can get that in.
Yeah. So like, it's a little hard to see from this.
Yeah, it's kind of small
because they're covered in the gravy, right? But so I mean, these noodles almost like, if you think of like scrambled eggs but crumbled up into like pieces almost. So it's not like long, straight, stringy noodles like Italian noodles would be. It's not spaghetti or ravioli or anything. It's nothing Italian, right? They're very much egg noodles. Heavy on the egg, but also still noodles. And so so I'm like really skeptical again, right? I'm like, I've had these mashed potatoes, and but I'm just like immediately like, okay, well, let's try the noodles, right? Let's see. Like, let me ground myself back in reality is almost my thought. I'm like, okay, all right, I need to get off of this food nirvana that I am on. So like, I need to go back to reality, right? And so I grab my fork, get a bite of the noodles, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's happened again. I'm in this this moment of shock, and then I literally felt shame just wash over me of, but these aren't Italian noodles. These can't be the best noodles I ever had. I love Italian food. I feel like I'm betraying my love right now. I'm cheating on Italian noodles and falling in love with these German egg noodles. Like, what's wrong with me? I'm a terrible person. Right? I felt like I had done something wrong, almost. But I was like, but they're so good. I didn't want to say it, right? My friend was like, I think these are the best noodles I've ever had. And I was like, My lips wanted to form the words, but my heart said no. You can't admit that out loud. How dare you betray Italian food by confessing your love for these German noodles? But I was like, so I had another bite, and then I was like, nope, these are really just too good. Like it overpowered my shame. They were so delicious. I just told him, I was like, I have to admit, I think these are the best noodles I've ever had. I feel like I'm betraying every bit of Italian that I've ever had, but I feel like these are the best noodles on earth. Even if it hurts to say it, I have to. Like, I just must admit the truth.
Wow.
It was an amazing experience. And it was really funny. So then I was like, I had gotten bratwurst, along with mine, and he had gotten some form of schnitzel. And so I was like, I'm not a huge sausages person, so I'm like, okay, it should be fine. But after having these side dishes, I'm like, oh wait, okay, well, I mean, is the meat gonna be amazing? Like, it could be. And so I slice off a piece, I put it in my mouth, I'm like, nope, this is just totally normal sausage. Like, there's nothing special about this.
Some people really like bratwurst, but I also tend to fall where you fall in this. I'm like, it's okay. Yeah. It's a pretty average piece of meat.
Yeah, I was like, this is just, some bratwurst. It's like a nice piece of sausage. You slice it up, mixed with the mashed potatoes. It is fantastic.
There you go.
So like, it all worked out fine. But, so I was like, so that one, I was finally like, okay, so at least this will ground me back in the reality of, like, we don't live in a perfect world. Not everything is amazing.
But what is the schnitzel again?
So schnitzel is almost like a breaded, it's not quite fried. I think it is grilled. I don't have a perfect understanding of it, but like, he had me try some. I think his was chicken. So it's almost like, if you've ever had a country fried chicken steak, it's kind of like that. Is the way that I would describe it. So it's like just like a slab almost of chicken that has been breaded with, and then like fried, but not fried. Like, I feel like it's grilled, but there's just like some oil in it, and so it ends up kind of frying itself almost. I don't know. I don't really have a great way to describe it.
I'm looking at it here. It's like that.
Yeah.
Kind of. Okay. Yeah. It says it is fried.
Okay. It is fried.
So
okay.
It's pounded really thin, apparently.
Yes.
And then they bread it and fry it, I guess, is mainly what it looks like. So that sounds decent. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, and his was really good, right? I had never had schnitzel before, so I couldn't really like compare it or whatever, but his was really good. I'm just not, and mine was, for sausage. I'm sure it was a great, bratwurst sausage. I'm just not a sausage guy. Right. I just went with it because it was the cheapest one, and I'm poor.
There you go.
So until Netflix sponsors our show, then maybe I can afford the schnitzel.
Well, it was about the potatoes and the noodles
exactly.
Anyway. So who really cares about the main course, right?
Yes.
That's pretty... I'm just like, this sounds so great. Mm-hmm. I just have to go eat this very soon.
Yeah.
I have to You
have to come with me.
I have to go. I have to try this. The best, because you're just the best. When you say the best, that is like, do you really, really mean that?
I really, really mean that.
Like, out of every mashed potatoes you've ever had anywhere ever, this is the best.
This is the best.
And the noodles.
Out of the best. Out of everywhere I've been, everything I've had. And you've been with me to, like, we've gone to various, like, reasonably good restaurants, and I've gotten the mashed potatoes. I always get the mashed potatoes. Like, you've seen me try... any kind of mashed potatoes that are like $10 and below. Like, I've tried probably all of them, except now I hadn't tried this one before, and these are totally worth it.
I'm going to give myself, I think this circumstance requires that I use a word that millennials would use.
Oh no.
Such as myself.
Okay.
Because I just love the visual it gives.
Mm-hmm.
This really, this just really makes me shook. I'm very shook by this. The fact that you can say these noodles are better than Italian noodles.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I can't.
Yeah. I know that, look, I know what's going through your head. You're like, Josh, you're a traitor, right? Like, how could you portray us like this?
No.
And I totally understand. I felt like one, but when you try them, like, you can't understand it until you try them.
I really think that's a bit extreme. I think your own shame on yourself is really, really extreme. But at the same time, I am kind of like, yes, Italian is like from heaven, so how could these noodles possibly be better? But I'll see. I will find out because I will be eating this, and then I'll have to come back to this. And if I don't think that these things are amazing, we're definitely going to talk about it.
Yeah, we're
like
we're
a
gonna
lot.
fight about
Like
this.
it will be great.
Yeah, this
but
will
if
be...
I do appreciate both of these things, then we can just like drool over them together on the podcast. You know,
that's right.
For a few seconds. You know,
yeah,
just really convince people how good it is. So that just sounds amazing, and I'm getting kind of hungry now, but that's okay because I'm looking forward to that. I have to eat that now. It's going to be great. I can't wait.
Yeah. Before you die and go to heaven, you've got to try the heaven and earth potatoes.
Wow. Okay.
Hollerback's Willow Tree Cafe, if you're listening, you can sponsor us too.
I feel like they should use that in their advertising. It's not that bad, actually.
Right.
They should just like if that's one of their signature things too. I mean, why not? They should. That sounds like a great tagline.
I am happy to come on. You know, we will talk about it on the show. I will do commercials for you guys.
You just trade that out for. You give them that little tagline. We do some advertising for them.
I think that's great.
Just trade.
Yep, and then they just give us a whole bunch of free mashed potatoes.
I am actually
they can
okay
sponsor
with that.
us in noodles and mashed potatoes.
I'm fine
and maybe
with
some schnitzel.
Yeah, sounds acceptable to me.
Yeah. I think this is a great idea.
We could just go in there like every month or so and just get a free meal or something.
Yeah, that sounds great. Right, we go in, we record a new little radio ad for them or whatever, right? Or we talk about their new product on the podcast or whatnot, and you know, we do our recording session there. We could even do a recording session at the restaurant.
Yeah.
We could live record an episode with their live entertainment. I'm just kidding. The entertainment's really, really loud. Like, that's true. I do, like, the restaurant...
Wait, they have entertainment?
Yeah. So they have the night that we went, there was live music. It was traditional German music. There was a guy on his accordion.
Okay, I've actually been to such a place like this, so I know what you're talking about now.
Yep.
I just connected.
Yep,
that's very interesting.
And they went full European or whatever, and the guy even yodeled at one point in his set and everything. Yeah, it was.
What do you think of that? That's a whole interesting thing to me.
Yodeling?
No, just the whole that whole style of performing.
I think it's interesting. I don't know that it's my style in particular because I'm a conversationalist. I like talking with people, and I feel like the live entertainment at the restaurant. I feel like you're supposed to listen to it some or pay attention to it some. At some level, it depends on how loud it is, right? And how much, right? So like at this place, it's definitely like this is what you're supposed to be here for is the food and the entertainment. Like it was like especially because they have indoor seating and outdoor seating. So like if you're in the outdoor seating, then it's more so like the entertainment's just kind of there's background noise. But when you're inside, like it's very loud. It's very much not built for having a conversation.
Really?
Right?
You can't really have one, or you can anyway.
You can if you're okay at reading lips. But no, like it's really loud. Like it's not like it's a concert level loud, but it's close. And we ended up at a table that was like a little bit closer to the entertainment too. Like we were kind of like right in the middle of the restaurant and the entertainment was all the way on one side. So like we were maybe on like the closer half of the restaurant. So it was a little louder for us than it would be for other people. But it was still like, and then also, I mean, like it's a German restaurant. So there's plenty of like groups of people with, like one of the specialties of the restaurant is there's like this boot full of beer that you can get with like that, like the 3 or 4 of you are supposed to share.
Yeah, I've been to a place like this. Like it was very similar in all the ways that you could imagine.
So
like,
I'm
very much imagining exactly what this was like based off of a similar place I've been to.
Yeah. So so I mean, there's plenty of like loud drunk people, right? Having and having a great time, and then there's the music going loud and whatnot. So like it's definitely about you go to it to experience the restaurant. right? It's not like, oh yeah, let's go have a business meeting here. Like, that's not what the restaurant is for.
Okay.
Right? Like, oh yeah, I just feel like we need to talk and catch up. And we haven't got to talk in a while, like, which is what me and this friend were trying to do, and we realized, oh, this is not the place to do that.
Oops, mistakes made.
But the mashed potatoes were
so
worth
it,
right?
It
made up for
it. Was
it.
all okay. So did you guys end up sitting outside, or
we sat inside, and we didn't realize like how loud it was going to be until we were already sitting down, and we'd already gotten like our drinks or whatever, and we were like, we're not going to make them move us outside. And the other thing was the restaurant was full. We had waited like 30 minutes to get a table anyway, so we were like, we can't move outside. Wow. So we were just kind of stuck with it. It was fine. We ended up, just after we finished eating, we just walked up and down downtown Sanford talking. So it worked out great. But yeah, so you should totally come sometime, Jared. Let me know when you're going. I will happily go back.
All right. Well, we could go on to our last topic for today and talk about a story that is now kind of dated.
Story time, Josh and Jared. Yeah, since this is our Valentine's Day episode that we recorded after Valentine's Day occurred, and it won't go up until probably March. And but it's our Valentine's Day episode.
It'll be like the end of. No, it will probably be like the middle of March.
Yes, but still, like definitely not by Valentine's Day.
Still a good month after Valentine's Day.
Right? But that's okay. It's it's vaguely that season, right? So this is our special Valentine's episode. I think maybe this could be a tradition that we put out a Valentine's Day episode in March. We should do this again next year. But anyway, so we wanted to talk about a couple years ago. We had an interesting adventure on Valentine's Day. I wanted to. I think it all started. It was me, right?
I'm pretty sure it was like all your idea.
Okay, so I had this idea.
I don't even know what I actually did.
You helped me out with it a lot.
I'm like I was kind of like just supporting you along the way, but I didn't really. Yeah. You kind of did everything, and then I just kind of showed up and like kind of helped.
Sure, but just like a good MMO support, you were there to like provide the shield and the health buffs and like the damage buffs and everything. So like, yeah, maybe you weren't the one dealing the damage, but it was because of you that I was able to deal the most damage. And although I guess that's a terrible analogy though, because we're talking about Valentine's Day, I was able to deal the most love. Because you were there supporting me with love buffs.
Oh my goodness, this is really... Okay.
But so it all started when me and these random YouTube videos. I realized like this is a trend with me. I'll like somehow end up watching an obscure.
Oh, this came from a random YouTube video.
That's right. I never told you that. I don't think I told
I
you.
did not know that until right now.
Yeah. This happened years ago, but now you're knowing like it all started when. So again, somewhere in my YouTube recommended tab, right, or my Facebook newsfeed, or somehow I ended up with this YouTube video. That was a guy who was proposing to his girlfriend, but he wanted to make it extra special, so he made a day of it. And he made it all about her. So when I think the day started with like her going to breakfast with her mom, and then that led into going to get like a manicure and a pedicure, and then that led into this and led into that. So it was almost like a scavenger hunt all around the city, and she was meeting up with different friends and people from her life all throughout, and it all culminated in this epic proposal at dinner. And so it was like this whole like day-long adventure trip, like touring around the city, going to some of their favorite places, and getting, buying a new dress and getting a manicure, and then later doing something else, and all this different stuff. Right, and I was like, I was inspired. I was like, what, I think I'd like to do that someday with my girlfriend or wife or fiance and whatnot. Like, this seems like a cool thing. But I was also like, but plans never go as planned. And so I realized I was like, what, I could do a practice run of something like this, just so I have some experience trying to pull off a quasi scavenger hunt day of love. And so I was like, what, This is what sisters are for, practicing for when you have a wife. So I thought about it. I was like, okay, so I have my sister and her best friend, and they're both single, and me and Jared are single, and we're all friends, and this could be a great Valentine's Day of friendship. And so I decided to develop this thing where I got to practice my love day skills by loving on my sister. So we did it. Valentine's Day was a Sunday that year, so we all went to church, and then after church, we handed them an envelope.
Yes.
With, I think that's right. We ended up having to hand them 2 envelopes. That's right. So we gave them the first one, and they were supposed to open that one, and that included a gift card to Starbucks, and we told them which Starbucks to go to. So they went to that Starbucks, and then once they got there and got their coffee, they were to open the second letter, and that sent them to the second place, which was there is this nice like lake,
like a park.
Yeah, and it's like a park, and it has this great place you can walk around, and it's right next to a mall. And so we sent them there, and to walk around the lake. But let's see, that's right. But yeah, and then again, best laid plans never work out as planned. Unfortunately, that lake or the walkway around the lake was under construction, and I just happened to, thankfully, I happened to have talked about my plans with another friend who's totally separate, and they were like. And so they were driving home from church, happened to drive by this lake thing, and just texted me. And were like, hey, by the way, wanted to let you know, the lake you're about to send the girls to is totally closed down for construction. And we were like, oh no, time to change plans. So we were able to like, okay, skip the lake, go straight to the mall. And there we had given them some money so they could go, buy a new pair of earrings or whatever they wanted to do. Yeah. So they were able to walk around the mall, and, they were able to just talk and chat. And all while this is going on, me and you, we're setting up the finale finish of a great dinner at Wendy's, and this is so comical. Yeah, so this one was not at all in the video. Like in the video, he's entered to an actual nice restaurant, but we were like, yeah, me and Jared don't have much money, so we were like, you know what if we took a Wendy's, but we brought our own like glassware and dishes, and we dressed up a Wendy's, and we made this Wendy's a little bit fancier. So yes. Yeah, so I talked with my mom. I got her permission to borrow some of our glass plateware and nice silverware and glasses and everything. And so we got a tablecloth and cloth napkins. And so me and Jared, while the girls were off having their nice adventure, me and Jared were at the Wendy's getting our table set up. The Wendy's people gave us very, very strange looks. And we dressed up in vests and bow ties and stuff.
Oh yeah, we were all the way dressed up, all the way there, like, and we brought all this stuff in.
Yep.
Just setting up this little booth with like a tablecloth, had glassware, had these napkins, and I remember when we were doing the napkins, we were like, let's fold these all fancy, and then we could not. It took us forever. Like that was the setup. Like if there was anything that took us. It must have took us half the time of setting up the whole thing just to fold these napkins. See, this is really sad in the picture, but we had the picture we have here. I'm going to get this on the notes hopefully, but you can see the napkins. You can see what we did there. We kind of folded them together and had them propped up, but that one of them just right there on the left is kind of falling over in this picture. That's just depressing to me, especially because it's so much work, but obviously... it was still a lot of effort. We tried. I think that was the big part of it.
Yes. Yeah, they definitely both the girls definitely felt very blessed and very loved. They had a great time. They got to catch up and have their little girl time at the mall and at the Starbucks, and then they came and met us for dinner. It was great. I also remember another fun part was walking up to there, because we had brought our own nice glasses. But I wanted to give everybody a soda, and so I was trying to think through. I was like, how am I going to do this, right? Like, and so I had to walk up to the counter with one of the glasses and be like, because I wanted to pay for it, right? I was like, but I'm like, this isn't like it. So I just walked up there and I was like, so would you guys call this a medium or a large? And can I buy 4 of these so we can use these at the soda machine and not be cheating you? Right.
I remember that. That was hilarious. And that is just so great. It is like...
It was... The poor employee was like, I don't know. And so they go to get the manager, and the manager just cracks up laughing. Like, what? Ethan? He was like, we're going to call it a medium. Ring them up for 4 mediums. I don't care. Like, I can't believe you guys are doing this. Like, and we had, while we were setting up, we had some of the people, just the customers at the restaurant saw us and were like, what on earth are you guys doing? And so we explained to them what we were doing, and they were like, that's the cutest thing ever. I'm sure those girls are going to love you for it. Like, it was great. It was this fun little experience. The employees were laughing at us and smiling at us the whole time. But it was great. We had a great time dressing up Wendy's, and yeah.
And it would not be complete without some Martinelli's, so that's obviously there.
That's right. We had to get that.
Got
that
some
sparkling,
of that too.
That sparkling apple cider. Cause
yes. Was that a real candle, by the way?
No,
I couldn't remember.
No, because we didn't want to light a real candle.
I feel like we weren't allowed or something.
Yeah,
like that just seems like something that you wouldn't be allowed to do. Like,
yeah, we felt like that would be a bit too far, so we got a battery-powered candle that there was just a light.
A real candle would have been cooler, but...
It would have been cooler, but I feel like it might have broken a health code or something, or at least made the Wendy's people a little too nervous. And I totally understood. I was
Your
like, yeah,
food has been polluted by the smoke from our candles.
Yeah, like, let's not light a fire in the Wendy's, right? Like, I feel like they're probably against that somewhere. That's probably not a good idea. So yeah, we had a battery-powered candle in the middle of the table there. Yeah, that was great. And we filled all our glasses up with red drinks, so it looked even more Valentine's Day.
Of course.
Yep.
Got to do that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It's very, very cute.
It was cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brought about by yours truly, the cute one. See, even in the early days, before I was the cute one, I was the cute one.
I don't know. I'm really skeptical about that whole...
This will be an eternal battle.
I'm skeptical about that name. Like,
you will always be skeptical.
You're just not cute at all.
But the people...
No, I'm just kidding.
Wow, Jerry. Wow. I am offended. I think you need to apologize.
Do you really? Do you think that?
No, I wasn't being genuine.
I don't even know what I'm going to do with the... I could just, like... And then just somewhere along the way it just cuts, and then... None of this is in there.
Yeah. These words could be lost forever.
I
don't know how I feel about that. Or they could show up later on like the 10th anniversary. We release a blooper reel.
A blooper wheel?
Blooper wheel. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. This is definitely. If we do have one, this is definitely. Going in there.
Do you realize how much of an editing nightmare that would be?
A blooper reel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, so you do
but
realize...
by the 10th anniversary of this podcast, we'll probably be paying for an editor, and so we can just make him do it. Or her.
No.
Yeah, this could be great. If we make it to 10 years of this podcast, we're doing a blooper reel.
No!
I don't think we're going to make it to 10 years of doing this podcast, but if we do...
Even if we do, I still protest.
I guess we'll talk about it then.
Oh my goodness.
We'll table this.
I would love for this to make it that long so that we can have this conversation.
I think this will be a great conversation. I think we can turn the whole episode into our just debate about whether or not we should have a blooper reel. And then the other half of this episode will be Josh trying to figure out how to say blooper reel correctly. Did I do it there? I feel like I keep saying blooper wheel.
Oh man, I don't know, but we should end this.
How do we want to end this?
I don't know, we could just click the button.
That's so final and official. Give us that feedback at thegoodpodcast7@gmail.com.